Well, the Warriors are now 3-0 on the homestand. They look damn good at home. And this time I got Kylen Mills with me. We're going to recap that game and also talk about two interesting topics. Even Kylen doesn't know what I'm talking about. None of you know what I'm talking about. You'll find out next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You follow Kylen Mills on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, at her name, Kylen Mills. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. My name's Cyrus Saatsaz. Kylen, your first reaction to a game that was close. The Warriors are missing their three best players, and they still came out victorious. What's your immediate reaction to that beautiful game?
Well, I think the result speaks for itself. After the first half, I was like, I don't know if the Warriors are going to pull this out. Like, it's pretty tough without Clay, Steph, and Wiggs playing against the Jazz. And granted, they started out hot. They finally cooled off and been more of the Jazz team that I think a lot of people were expecting going into this season. However, they're still not an easy team to beat. They're still over 500, which is better than the Warriors at this point in time. They were still just ahead of the Warriors in the rankings. So, I think it was important to get this win, especially given the Warriors need to get as many wins as possible at home with all the struggles they've had on the road. A couple of big takeaways for me. First of all, Jordan Poole continues to show up in Steph Curry's absence. Like, I still like Jordan Poole in the starting lineup. I think he does much better. He's more productive. So he had, some solid numbers last night. He was absolutely brutal from beyond the arc. But aside from that, I still think that Jordan Poole has the potential to be a scorer and a playmaker. He just has to shoot better from three. But the two big surprises for me, one, PBJ. Oh my gosh, I thought he looked great last night. And number two, Cyrus, your favorite, and I can't wait to give you some hell about this, Ty Jerome. 17 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, +7. And I just love to keep this discourse going because of all the fans and commenters that have been getting in on giving you a hard time. But I thought Ty Jerome and PBJ off the bench looked fantastic. So, I think it was a good win for the Warriors. They need this one. They need to get as many at home as possible before they head on a tough road trip. And also, I'm really hoping the Warriors get Andrew Wiggins back before that road trip. That would be crucial for them. And there's been no update. He's been cleared to practice now for almost 2 weeks. So it's what's the deal? Hopefully Wiggs is back soon.
Yeah, we don't know much about the illness. That is a good point you bring up because his abdominal injury is healed, but he's battling an illness. That's the extent of what we know. You bring up, first of all, on last night's show, Ty Jerome, I started the show with him, giving him praise and acknowledged his fantastic night. And this is about as far as I can go in terms of praise for Ty Jerome. If they give him the guaranteed deal, I'm okay with it. I'm not going to be opposed to that. He's now earning his way. The only thing I still hesitate about Jerome, Lamb, a lot of these players is I need to see it on the road before I'm 100% sold. Just because it's very easy to forget that this Warriors team still owns the worst road record in the NBA. And when we see these guys on the road, it's like a whole different team. It's every time they come home, everyone's happy. I mean, the Warriors own the best home record in the NBA. They look like the defending champs. And then they go on the road and they look discombobulated. They look lost, disinterested. So I will be 100% sold when I see it on the road. But there's no argument for me. I'm all about wins and losses. But if they win, I support whoever's on the team. It's just they weren't winning with them until very recently. So, I'm all about it. And Jordan Poole, I'm really glad you brought him up because that was going to be topic number one. Okay. And welcome everybody, by the way, joining us. Kylen, you're in Cincinnati right now? Is that correct? Are you
I'm in Cincinnati. I've been taking the show on the road this week. So I'm off this week between the holidays, and my husband and I have a couple of weddings next weekend. So we're doing the show from all over the map right now. I was in Chicago on Monday. Today I am in Cincinnati, where my husband is from. So
my goodness.
From Ohio.
Are you in the actual city of Cincinnati or a suburb?
Yeah, no, I'm in actual Cincinnati in the city.
What's Cincinnati like, by the way? I've been to 34 states, but haven't explored Ohio that much. Haven't been to Cincinnati. I know it's right near other states. It's right? What's Cincinnati like?
So Cincinnati's right on the Kentucky, Ohio border. It's the south end of Ohio. It's right on the river, so it's beautiful. There's beautiful riverfront views. I mean, they've done a good job of like building up the area around like where the Bengals play, the Bengals stadium called the Bank. So it's fun to go to some sporting events down here. But I mean, it's still Ohio. So for me,
Yeah.
I'm from Chicago. When it comes to a Midwest city, like it doesn't compare. But you know, there's some beauty around here, and I enjoy it. It's a nice like mid-sized city. So it's good for a
Nice.
trip. It's good for, a short weekend trip.
Nice. Well, I hope you're having fun out there. Jordan Poole. You mentioned the fact that he had a bad shooting night last night from deep, and you're
Yeah.
right. But one thing that I'm been impressed with him lately, because he's on actually like a huge slump when it comes to 3-point shooting. Like over the last, I believe, 6 games, dating back to the Knicks game on the road, he shot 2 for 8 from beyond the arc during that game. In the Brooklyn Nets game, he was 1 for 11. When they hosted Memphis Christmas Day, he was 3 for 10. Against Charlotte 2 nights ago, he was 1 for 7. And
Well,
then last night against the Jazz, 2 for 10. So something's definitely going on there in terms of 3-point struggles. But here's what's really impressing me about Jordan Poole, among many things, is that despite his shooting woes from deep, he's still making it happen. Like he's still like he's clearly taken on the burden of Stephen Curry's responsibilities and his leadership. You're seeing Stephen Curry mentor him, which is just beautiful to watch. But his point production, despite the 3-point shooting being down, is still solid. In those same games I just listed, he scored 26, 13. That was a bad night in Brooklyn, but then 32, 24, 26 last night. So he's still coming through. And this leads to the first topic, and that is Jordan Poole. Our good friend Connor Letourneau wrote a new piece for the San Francisco Chronicle, and it was a column about whether or not Jordan Poole should become a permanent starter on this team. And some stats he pulled out are pretty wild. Jordan Poole, when he starts, averages 26.1 points per game. When he comes off the bench, he only averages 14.1. That's a discrepancy that just shocked me. When he comes off the bench, he shoots just 40.9% from the field. He only shoots 79.2% from the free throw line. This is the reigning free throw champion. So at a certain point, Steph's going to come back. Kylen, easy question to answer. In your opinion, I'm being facetious there. What's going to go? Why do you think Jordan Poole is so different as a starter versus off the bench? And what do you think the Warriors should do about that, if anything?
I think that he's a different player in the starting rotation because of number one, Steph Curry. Because when he's playing with Steph, the gravity of Steph completely changes the floor spacing. So he gets so many more open looks. I think someone commented on that as well when it comes to Jordan Poole hitting his 3-point shots as well as hitting mid-range shots. I mean, I do believe that playing with Steph Curry is easy for any shooter because he does space the floor so well. And Steph also isn't a selfish player in that he'll dish to you and get you wide open looks when the defense collapses on him or when he's being double teamed. So to me, that's one of the big factors why I think Jordan Poole does really well playing alongside Steph Curry. Now, in Steph Curry's absence, I think that Jordan Poole has just been playing with a lot more confidence and aggression because he knows he needs to be that scorer. He needs to be the guy versus when Steph Curry's out there. And then, in addition to him playing without Steph is the fact that just the ball is in his hands more because you don't have Steph Curry creating playmaking and hitting shots like he usually would be. So to me, those are two just kind of external factors that I believe are affecting the reason why he's playing that way. Because like I said, I just think the ball's in his hands more. He knows he needs to be the guy without Steph there.
Right.
And he's just played so much more aggressive in light of that. Like I love, it seems like just a different mindset that he's been playing with since Steph has been injured. Someone just pointed out, John L pointed out that he needs to pick his time when doing too much dribbling. And that's one thing I do feel like in the second unit has caused Jordan Poole to struggle. I just feel like he does a little bit too much when he's running the floor with that second unit. But another reason for that, I feel like could be just the fact that there aren't other scorers. This is something we talked about before, Cyrus. However, right now with all the starters out, Jordan Poole still doesn't have a lot of scores around him and he's still putting up big numbers. So I don't know, there may just be a difference in mentality for him when he's with that starting rotation versus coming in off the bench.
Right.
What do you think?
No, I'm with you. And Connor and I actually had a long conversation about it before we published the article because the thing is, we saw this last year, right? Klay Thompson didn't come back until January. Jordan Poole was starting in his place. And Jordan Poole last year was fantastic as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
But he adjusted to the role last year and he seemed to be fine. And I was telling Connor that most likely, regardless of what stats you pull out, and that scoring discrepancy is wild. I don't know who you bench in his place. Kerr is so loyal. And by the way, hello, Laura Doan, who's one of our biggest fans. Thank you so much for joining us live. If I said the name right, I hope. I just think Kerr is so loyal to Klay Thompson, and that's the only player that seems to make sense coming off the bench. I actually think, and this is weird, when we come back, I'd love to get your reaction. I actually think in a perfect world, the player that might work coming off the bench, if you'd be open to that, and I think you would be. I'll save that name for when we come back because that's called the tease, folks.
That is a tease.
Yeah. So, first, let's give some love to Rocket Money. That's what today's show is brought to you by. Look, if your New Year's goals are to manage your budget better and you want to save money, that's where Rocket Money comes into play. And they're formerly a Truebill. It's all about canceling subscriptions. I just had a headache the other day where I just, out of the blue, I thought I saw 3 charges on my credit cards, on 2 different credit cards from Amazon. I had like 3 subscriptions, still don't know where those came from. I never made those subscriptions. Who knows how many months those charges were coming at me for? It was about $50 a month. And Rocket Money saves that kind of hassle. They figure out where you're wasting money. They figure out subscriptions, whether it could be streaming services, whatever it is that you're paying for that you don't even realize you're paying for and that you don't want to pay for. Rocket Money is your salve. So go check them out. Stop throwing your money away, cancel unwanted subscriptions, and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba. rocketmoney.com/lockedonnba.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Make sure to check out Locked On Sports today. The biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills on social media platforms at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. So what do you think about Andrew Wiggins coming off the bench? This is not necessarily something that will happen. I don't imagine it. But in a perfect world, I feel like you start Jordan Poole, you slide Klay to the 3, and I suggest this because Kerr is so loyal to Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson, I feel like, would be the obvious player to come off the bench, but that loyalty factor is so deep that I don't think that's going to happen. But what would you think about Andrew Wiggins coming off the bench? It would fortify that bench so much. Wiggins would obviously still get his 35 minutes a night. It would be a move strictly, again, to bolster a second unit that could use a veteran presence, that could use an all-star presence. He's easily your 6th man of the year at that point, and he still finishes games. So he still maintains a role as one of your 5 best players, but he just starts the game off the bench. What do you think about that?
Nope. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying what you're selling. I'm not buying what you're selling. Andrew Wiggins, I don't think is a player who's dispensable to putting off the bench. He's the Warriors' second best player right now. I believe that wholeheartedly. He this season has been playing at an all-star level. I don't think you can put him in the second unit. In addition to the fact that what he brings defensively, the Warriors need up against and lined up in rotations against the other team's best player. Like, they need Andrew Wiggins shutting down whoever the biggest threat is offensively of their opponents. So I just don't see Klay Thompson, yes, used to take that role, but I don't see Klay Thompson playing at the same level as Andrew Wiggins right now. For me, I feel like it has to be Klay Thompson coming off the bench if you were to make that switch with Jordan Poole. The other option to me would be, depending on the matchup, putting Kevon Looney in the second unit and potentially rolling out the small ball lineup, maybe. And I think that is completely dependent on who they're playing against, because the Warriors have struggled inside and we know they're not a huge team. But I do think running the floor at times can work for them. But to me, if you're going to make the switch, it's got to be Thompson and Poole. I just don't think they can afford to have Andrew Wiggins, the second best player on the team, an all-star to me, clearly this season, and the guy they need on the biggest threat of their opponents, I don't think they can afford him in that second unit. So he's one, as well as Steph Curry too, that I think you absolutely cannot have in the discussion to move to the bench role. I also think Draymond Green, like I know that they've been getting him in rotations with that second unit, but I think the Draymond Steph minutes together are really crucial for the Warriors. So that's where you kind of deal with the conundrum. And is it worth it to put Jordan Poole in the starting lineup, potentially break up some type of chemistry they've got going there? It's a tough call, but I don't think I could go with Andrew Wiggins in the second unit.
All right. Just remember they beat Memphis without Wiggins, period. They beat Utah without Wiggins, period. They've shown they can do it without their star players, which has been very impressive in this homestand. And again, this wouldn't be diminishing Wiggins. And this is all just, by the way, this is very strictly conjecture here. This is not actually putting a foot down on proposing this. It's just an idea. But it would make the second unit insanely strong while you're not sacrificing the starting unit. And again, I'm with you. In a perfect world, Klay Thompson comes off the bench, but Kerr is just stubbornly loyal to him. So I just don't think that would ever happen. All right. So the Wiggins idea is dead. Switching gears for a second, I want to talk about Jonathan Kuminga, who I thought had another fantastic game last night. And Kuminga's been the way he's been performing at a level where the stat sheet doesn't reflect his impact, just because what he's doing out there is incredible defensive minutes, great rebounding. He's kind of taken on he's brought this alpha dog out of him that I don't think a lot of people saw early in his career. Our predecessor to this show, Wes Goldberg, wrote a new column. I retweeted it on my Twitter account at DogSurfRoadshow. It's a profile piece on Kuminga. And one thing I saw in this article that made me elated, that made me ecstatic and relieved, is that early in his career, Jonathan Kuminga, when he talked about players he looked up to, he would often mention Kyrie Irving. And that was always like such an eyebrow raiser. I'm like, do not look at him. Please, for the love of God, do not look at Kyrie Irving as a model to replicate your game after, to replicate your attitude after. And this article really relieved me and removed so much of the anxiety I had about that, because in this article, Jonathan Kuminga said he looks up to Kobe Bryant, that Kobe's the player that he wants to emulate, that he looks up to. It's a great piece. Bigger picture here, your thoughts on Jonathan Kuminga, how he's doing. I know the stat sheet doesn't show that he's lighting it up, but he's playing huge minutes out there. Your thoughts?
We talked about this last game, Cyrus. I agree. And I think that Jonathan Kuminga is doing so much defensively that just doesn't show up in the stat sheet. And I felt that same way that, the last couple games, I just think that he's been bringing it on the defensive end and he's been making smart plays, banging in the glass. Like, I just think that what he's been doing is, like you said, just a lot of the intangibles that don't show up on the stat sheet. I think he's looked good, though. I think that Jonathan Kuminga has looked good. He's doing exactly what Steve Kerr told him to do. And it's just like focus on the defensive end of the floor. And if you do well defensively, you will play for this Warriors team because they need defense. Steve Kerr absolutely loves harping on defense. He wants this to be one of the best defenses in the NBA. And if you focus on that, rather than focus so much on being a scorer and putting up, points in the stat sheet, then you're going to get minutes on this team. And I think that Jonathan Kuminga has finally wrapped his head around that, because to me, that's exactly the style of play that we're seeing from him. He's, just playing really well on the defensive end and then trying to translate that into easy buckets on the other end, rather than forcing or doing too much offensively, because this team, we know we're loaded with scorers, even in the absence of some of the Warriors starters. Like, there are plenty of guys who can chip in on the offensive end, but can you be a huge presence for the Warriors defensively and a presence inside, which they've needed as well? And I think Jonathan Kuminga is starting to embrace that role finally. And I think that's why we're seeing more minutes for Kuminga and just better play for Kuminga. Defense leads to offense. Exactly. D, you put it perfectly. And then Kuminga can be a rim runner, and he's a player who can get out in fast breaks. He's so athletic. He's so quick, and I just think that he's simplified his game, and he just looks so much better when he just, focuses on being a really strong defender and letting that translate into the offensive side.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
No, I agree. I wholeheartedly, I love Kuminga. I don't think I've never once said otherwise. I love him. I think he's going to be a future superstar in this game. And the more I see him, especially this emergence of his defensive side, that dog in him that I was waiting to see, we saw that. I'm starting to see more of a Kawhi path for him. Maybe he's just going to carve his own path entirely. I love what I'm seeing. And Joe writes, Kuminga should never play less than 25 minutes. I agree. I've always said from the get-go of this show, good things happen when Kuminga plays. I would love to see him play minutes, and that would, I think, lead to what Supremacia, I can't even pronounce that. They write, Kuminga needs to develop a mid-range game to get to the next level, but he won't get there until he plays, right? And so that's where I think those 25 minutes plus a game would benefit tremendously for him. So there you go. And before we go to break, there's another huge issue at play for the Warriors coming up. But Ty Burke, real quick, writes, first of all, I'm not going to apologize to anybody. This is a sports talk show. I'm allowed to criticize the Warriors as part of the whole premise of this platform is we're not news reporters here. Okay. We're throwing ideas out. We're throwing opinions out. We're here to entertain as much as inform. So I'm not going to apologize because I criticized Steve Kerr or I criticized Ty Jerome. And look, for all the people that are suddenly thinking like everything's magically resolved, they still own the worst road record in the NBA. They're still just at 500. So there's still a long ways to go before we think that everything's just fine. So Ty Burke, I've already said, Ty Jerome's grown on me. I'm coming around. I like him and Anthony Lamb. When we come back, though, I'm going to ask Kylen what her thoughts are on their future, because that question, that issue is going to come up in just a moment. It's not that 50-game mark is around the corner, and there's going to be a huge decision to make for the Golden State Warriors. But first, a PSA from the National Highway Transportation Safety Agency. Let's say you're hanging out with some friends, you're putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyways? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up. You lose your license. You lose your job. You total your car. You kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic, often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, play it safe, plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. So here's the issue, all right? The Warriors at the 50-game mark, we've touched on this quite a bit now, but that 50-game mark is coming soon. The Warriors' record right now, I believe, is what? They're 18-18. Is that right? I actually don't have it in front of me. I think that's what the record is. So they're at the 36-game mark.
Yes, they're 500 exactly. You're right.
In 14 games approximately, I think it's going to be a little more than that because Lamb and Jerome didn't play in every regular season game, but they're going to hit that 50-game mark soon after the Warriors hit their 50-game mark. And then the Warriors have a big decision to make. What do we do with these two guys? I love how it becomes synonymous with Ty Jerome. I've already said I'm okay. I'm happy if he gets a guaranteed deal. All right. I don't know what else you want from me. I like him on the team. Let's move on. What are the Warriors going to do, Kylen? What should they do, Kylen? Because here's the two issues. One is they only have one open roster spot right now. So unless you waive JaMychal Green or Andre Iguodala or Ryan Rollins, and I don't see them waiving Rollins. I think they have a big picture plan for him. I don't see them waiving Iguodala. I think they signed him and have given him all this leeway for a good reason. So JaMychal Green seems like the odd man out if you're going to keep both Lamb and Ty Jerome. But here's the other problem that no one is talking about, and that is Joe Lacob and Peter Guber are counting those pennies, man. Like they're not just free will and spenders. Clearly, the impression is there that they are. They give these big deals, but if they really were willing to just spend whatever it takes, Gary Payton II would still be on this team. Otto Porter Jr. would still be on this team. So the question is, what happens with Lamb and Jerome? Because even if you give them guaranteed deals, each of those players in reality is going to cost the Warriors somewhere in the $5 million range, I'm guessing, because it's a prorated guaranteed deal. So half of the season will be covered. But again, those luxury tax penalties can be 7 to 8 times sometimes what that salary actually is. So Kylen, in your opinion, what's going to happen?
Okay, so do you want to know what I want to happen versus what I think is going to happen?
Both.
So like
Both.
what I still am advocating for the Warriors signing a vet big. Like I still would love to see that happen. I have said all along that I don't think it will, but I think the Warriors need a veteran, a center, a large reinforcement in the second unit. I still feel like the size is going to be a problem down the stretch. So I would love to see them use that final roster spot in a vet big. If not, execute a trade. And then if you still have that extra roster spot, sign Ty Jerome. I think if it comes down to straight just Anthony Lamb versus Ty Jerome is just so much more efficient at his position than Anthony Lamb. I truly believe that. And I think that he's proven to be more effective, especially in these games with Steph and Wiggs out, that he is just better at his position than Lamb. However, the problem then becomes that the Warriors just don't have any size. So you sign Ty Jerome. What are you doing as far as size in that second unit? And that's where I feel like they just still need another big. And I think the reason why Anthony Lamb has gotten so many minutes in so many games is just because they don't have any other forwards. They don't have a true center in that second unit. And that's why I still think they're one big away. And I just like cannot let go of that point because I really believe that. But so if it comes down to straight up Lamb and Jerome.
Just to put a pause on what you're saying real quick.
Yeah.
So are you saying then that you don't think Wiseman is the answer? I mean, he's been doing okay in limited minutes, but that's not enough for you. You're not satisfied.
I don't feel confident that Wiseman is the answer and that he's ready to contribute at a championship level. Now, I want to say this with a major caveat, and that I don't think that Wiseman is incapable of contributing in the NBA. I don't think that he's incapable of starting to play more minutes with the Warriors versus, he spent his time in Santa Cruz. And I think he's looked better, but like better isn't necessarily a championship caliber level and a championship level rim protector. I just think it's a huge leap to make. Like for Wiseman to go from like a long stretch in Santa Cruz to like suddenly being ready to be like, once again, the guy in the second unit when they do face teams with bigger size, like I just feel like that's a lot of pressure to put on James Wiseman. And I just don't feel 100% that he's ready. It would be great to have the reinforcements of a veteran who's been there, done that, and can also provide size. So like I said, I want to put in a big caveat that I don't think that Wiseman necessarily is, a total bust like everyone wants to say. And I don't think that he necessarily needs to spend a ton more time in Santa Cruz. I think we've seen in limited minutes, he looks good, but clearly Steve Kerr still doesn't trust him playing a long extended period of time. And I just think it's a huge leap to like talk about, hey, if we're looking down at the end of the postseason, the Warriors in a championship matchup, is James Wiseman going to be ready if they need him to put in big minutes against some of the best centers in the NBA? Do I think he's there? Unfortunately, no. And that's why I would love to have another veteran big in the second unit, or just on the roster, and not someone, like I've said, not someone who maybe needs to do a ton or put up a ton of minutes, but just situationally that you can put in games. And I don't know. Like I said, I just don't know that my trust level is there, that Wiseman is ready for that right now.
Okay. So what do you think is going to happen?
I think that Wiseman, and by the way, I think that Wiseman should continue getting minutes and should still get to play because he needs it for his development. I just think it's a big ask to say, like, between now and the end of season that he's 100% ready, to be that key person off the bench, defending the rim. So what do I think is going to happen? That's a great question. I don't think the Warriors are going to make a trade. I don't think they're going to sign someone like Boogie, which I've been advocating for. And I know we've said what Bob Myers has said about him, whatever else. I don't think it's going to happen. Even a Dwight Howard, like we've discussed that we would like, I don't think that's going to happen. I ultimately think they will sign Ty Jerome. However, I do think someone made a good point in the chat. The Warriors could waive JaMychal Green. Do you think that would be an option and would you keep Lamb if they waive JaMychal Green?
Yeah, that's the odd man out. That's what I keep seeing. If you're gonna,
I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and by the way, Supremacia writes, they want a petition for me to interview Ty Jerome. Connor Letourneau just interviewed him. It's a great piece. Go check out the San Francisco Chronicle. Beautiful profile piece. In fact, no one had really written much about him until that story. I learned a lot about him, and I've said this a million times. I have nothing against him personally. If I interviewed him, I just simply ask him about his background, and I'd want to learn about him. But ultimately, look, for the people I saw something here. Oh yeah, Paul Revere wrote that Never forget the words of Cyrus the Virus. Get Ty Jerome off this team. Here's what I'll respond to that. My issue from the get-go has always been, I want the lottery picks to get minutes. Even last night, when Ty Jerome played a total of 30 minutes, 29 minutes and 41 seconds more specifically, in that same game, Moses Moody only played 12 minutes and 56 seconds. I still, with utter conviction, believe that if those minutes had gone to Moses Moody instead, and if Patrick Baldwin, instead of 12 minutes and 39 seconds, we haven't even touched on him today, by the way, if that had gone up to, let's say, 20, and if Jonathan Kuminga played, instead of 21 minutes, played 30 minutes to make up for those for Ty Jerome not playing, I still maintain that the Warriors are still winning that game and they're still okay. That's not hate on Ty Jerome. I think he's playing great ball out there. I'm advocating. I'm for him staying on this team with a guaranteed deal. My entire premise for my argument's always been, don't hinder the development of these youngsters for Ty Jerome. That is what has bothered me. I don't want to see Moses Moody. I don't want to see Jonathan Kuminga losing minutes for Ty Jerome. That has been my argument. I still believe that. But with that said, the Warriors are winning with this formula, so I have nothing against it. It's all about winning. If you win, I support it. Plain and simple. The formula is wins and losses. That's the goal. So does that make sense? Am I speaking illogically?
I get what
here?
you're saying. I guess,
okay.
like, for me, I'm just kind of thinking that, like, Ty Jerome just plays a totally different role than Moses Moody. And especially in regards to Steph being out, like, I see Ty Jerome's added value in his ability to facilitate in a way that I don't think Moses Moody can. And even Jonathan Kuminga, when you see him bring the ball up in certain situations. So I guess that would be my only return question, is just like, how do you disperse the minutes then in who's running the floor then in the second unit? Because to me, that's where Ty Jerome's skill set is most valuable.
And I will respond the way I've responded a million times to that question. They don't need that. Like positions in basketball were created so that people can understand the game better. It is a rare sport. It's similar to soccer, except even in soccer, you have one fixed position, which is goalie, right? But the other 10 are just freewheeling. You can, in theory, have 10 midfielders out there, and that's it. Is that correct, Kylen? Like, you don't need to have.
No, okay, so, but I mean, there's a structure. People do stick to the structure fairly.
Right. But a coach, maybe someone who someday is going to be called progressive, could come out and just say, I'm going to have 5 defenders, 5 middies, and that's it. And if it works, suddenly you're going, whoa, that's like a whole new. So my point is, in basketball, positions are the same. It's the same premise in basketball. Like, positions are subjective. They're constructs so that people can understand the game better. You don't need to necessarily have this quote unquote point guard out there. I've always considered point guard to be one of the most overrated positions. And Steve Kerr, his offensive system, the brilliance of it is that you don't need that point guard type player. They proved that last year. Kylen, my answer to your question, I guess, is this. Look at last year. They had Chris Chiozza was Ty Jerome last year, and Steve Kerr stopped playing him at the midway point. He only played Chiozza on nights when everyone was benched. They don't need that. You can move the ball around. The motion offense, the split action offense of Steve Kerr is a derivative of Phil Jackson's triangle. It's where he got it from, where it's all about whoever has the ball, everyone else is moving, and you find the most opportune scorer. I don't think you need a Ty Jerome type. Now, with that said, again, I'm not sitting here blasting Ty Jerome. I'm all for him. I'm just saying, for people calling me out, saying, like, I criticized him in the past, I wasn't criticizing him per se. I was criticizing Kerr for giving Ty Jerome these minutes over the youngsters, who I think their ceiling is much higher and who I just think ultimately are more athletic players and who need the reps to contribute in the postseason. That was my argument. Okay, so I'm not hating on Ty Jerome. I just wish the young players were developed. And I do believe that if the Warriors, instead of giving Lamb and Jerome these minutes from the outset, were giving these minutes to the youngsters, if Moody was getting 25 minutes a night, if Kuminga was getting 25 minutes a night, they would be much more developed at this point in the season where you wouldn't need to rely on these two-way players. But with that said, I love them. I'm not sitting here blasting them right now, okay? Like that's all I'm trying to say. I hope that makes sense, Kylen. Am I going crazy?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I don't even think that it has to be structured like this person is a point guard. I just think his playmaking and facilitating abilities really were on display in that second unit when Dante DiVincenzo and Jordan Poole aren't coming off the bench, if that makes sense. Like, to me, he's more of a similar type of player who can facilitate the way that Dante DiVincenzo can facilitate that offense and get the motion offense going. So I think they're both are valid points. What is the chat going wild again?
I don't know. All I'm saying is I'm happy, right? I'm happy. The Warriors are back to 500. If you look at the standings right now, and I think everyone should be happy. I hope they are. If you look at the standings, the Warriors, I had it here just a second ago. Here we go. I think they're 2.5. They're 2.5 back of the 4th seed, if I'm not mistaken. 3.5 back of the 3rd seed. The Warriors are in position to make a run as soon as they figure out the road situation, which, again, they still own the worst road record in the NBA at 3-16. They have the best home record at 15-2. And right now, they are literally 3.5 games back of the 3 seed. So they're fine. I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy. Before we go, by the way, what do you think about and again, for all the people that keep saying you need Ty Jerome, why are none of you answering that they were fine last year? They didn't need a point guard last year. They won a world championship without having a Ty Jerome last year. So and they didn't have anyone else that was like that. So I don't understand this. So many people keeps insisting that there's a need for that. They've proven there's no need for that. So anyways, before we go, you got to run. I know you have a busy schedule. Happy early new year, by the way. I don't think we're gonna have another show before it's 2023. I don't think we will. So happy new year, Kylen. Wow, man, we made it. 2022 is almost over. Your Patrick, peanut butter and jelly. Do you want to hear this soundbite before we go of him talking about eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? This guy, his nickname is PB&J, and he literally, until recently, has never had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Here is Patrick Baldwin Jr., who had a magnificent game last night.
Patrick, what's your go-to snack for a car ride like that? Right, because you probably had to go from no lunch to straight here, maybe not have any proper dinner.
It's now a PBJ sandwich.
Okay.
So I just had my first one the other day.
Your first one the other day?
First one the other day.
Ever?
Ever. Yeah, ever.
What did your mom make you for lunch in grade school?
Hey, man, I'm going over here. I'm on a roll. Keep going.
Turkey sandwiches, cream cheese bagels, anything except the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I don't know. I definitely missed out.
I'm sorry, man. I just want to follow up on the peanut butter, circle back on that.
Yeah.
What inspired you to try the peanut butter sandwich?
I believe we'll see in a few days what it was, but it was a fun project we worked on, and I got to try my first one, and I think it'll come out in a couple weeks. Yeah, you'll see it soon. You'll see it soon.
And when was that?
It was shot, I want to say a week ago. A week ago, yeah.
Okay.
Your mom didn't name you turkey.
I did have one. I had two today.
Anything else? Any more food questions? Is that it? All right, cool. We'll have a couple other guys up.
Strawberry.
There you go, Strawberry. Do you know who the report? I couldn't figure out who that reporter was at the beginning.
I would recognize that voice anywhere. That was Janie McCauley, the AP writer who covers all Bay Area sports, including the Golden State Warriors. You need to follow her because I love her. She's the best person ever. Shout out.
She is. Agreed. She's love Janie McCauley. Props. Yeah, AP, like you said. Any last thoughts before we wrap up 2022?
No, so looking ahead at the Warriors schedule, it's something I was doing today. And like the rest of the Warriors homestand is very Cy Jerome. Oh my God, I love that. Also, someone else said in the chat, Gilbert said somewhere way down there that Cyrus should be a lawyer because he never admits he's wrong.
Oh my God.
He laughs so hard. Cy, you should be an attorney, according to Gilbert.
I would wear a Cy Jerome jersey. I would do that. If someone made that for me, I'd absolutely wear a Cy Jerome jersey. 100%. Hell yeah.
That'd be fantastic. The comments are cracking me up. I love them. Keep them coming. But I just was going to say, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. You go, please.
I was just going to say, I was looking at the schedule today, trying to figure out where the Warriors are at. First of all, every game of this homestand is winnable. The last game of the homestand against the Suns is going to be the toughest, but the Warriors will have 2 days off in between. And, I'm still hoping that Andrew Wiggins is back. And like, I still think the Warriors could potentially sweep this homestand, which they need. And then the big question mark is, can they figure it out on the road? Because then they go on a 5-game road trip, and like, you've got to win some of those games. Like, you have to. You could not go 0-5 or 1-4 on that trip. So the road test is going to be the real test. But I think the Warriors have got to take care of business at Chase Center, and all of these games coming up are winnable. When you look at the teams they're playing, like, these are winnable games.
Absolutely. Things are looking up, folks. Let's get into 2023 in style. And before we go, I do want to mention Dante DiVincenzo. Give him an extension, please. Like, he is so damn good. I love Dante DiVincenzo. Sign me up. His last name is incredible. DiVincenzo, mamma mia. All right. Kylen, Happy New Year. Love you. Thank you, everyone, for the support. Really, man, that's a genuine thanks. Like, we don't exist without you. So thank you. Any last words, Kylen, before we wrap up 2022?
No, thank you everyone for joining us and for continuing to give Cyrus a hard time and keep me entertained. Keep up the good work. Cy Jerome was one that I had not thought of, but I'm so here for it.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it. If someone actually makes that jersey, I'm wearing it. I will wear it on this shirt. I love the name, Cy Jerome. I wish my last name was Jerome.
Late, you may be getting a late Christmas present from me, Cyrus, because the jersey doesn't come to fruition. I might have to make it come to fruition.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, so I wish my last name was Jerome. That would be so much better than what I have now. Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks, Kylen. Love you all. Later.